I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. We'll skip the Pledge of Allegiance. We just did that a moment ago, and go to right to roll call.
Commissioner Ansargi.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Chairman Bonnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sudis-Little.
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
Present.
Thank you. That brings us to communications, proclamations, presentations, and the first thing up is Mr. Steve Christensen for the Drain Commission. Thank you for coming tonight instead of Tuesday.
Thank you for having us here. Steve Christensen, Drain Commissioner, and Brian Sensi is the engineer that I've hired to work with me with the drainage districts that are coming forth. Sorry I didn't realize the hearing was going to take so long last Tuesday. We just couldn't, I scheduled a meeting. But anyway, here we are. I thought I'd click through the number of districts that are current with us right now that we're working on, give you a couple sentences on each, and then maybe open for questions. Brian's here. He can answer a lot more questions than I can. We're halfway through my first drainage district, and Brian is expert at it, and it's helping me a lot. That brings us to the listing. Schaumburg Drain, that's the one we're about halfway through. We're in the process of garnering easements. I knew garnering easements would be interesting and probably a little time consuming, and that's turned out to be true. So it's quite a process. Brian has seen it before. He comes at it of the opinion that the very first thing that he would do is ask for an easement for free, and request that they be signed over to us. We haven't seen one of those yet, but anyway, that's his starting point, so it gives you an idea how he is conservative, and our goal is to make these as inexpensive as we possibly can, so that the burden in the end is as low as it possibly can be. Timberley Drain is the next one I want to talk about. We're at the point now where we can send the collector out for signatures for a petition, and I anticipate him being able to garner those fairly easily, and then we would be on to a board of determination, and that means that we're relatively close to having our official second project in motion. That's a relatively large drain. Timberley Drive that runs north and south, that is dirt and not county plowed, is the one that we're looking at. The rescue vehicles, fire and rescue, have had difficulty getting up and down. County has had trouble with that sediment pouring out on Fouch Road. So it's one that I've looked at over the long term, and the short little fixes have worked, but now we're looking at a district there. Lake Bluffs is another one right next to it. We have signatures in to initiate the process for this one. So those three are really moving along. The meeting on last Tuesday was with Suttons Bay Village. Broadway Street, running in essence west out of town, is partway fixed and kept up by the village, and partway by the County Road Commission township-wise. So there's a split there. So trying to figure out who's going to pay for what and can we fix what's going on there has been difficult for those two entities to try to get together. So they are looking at the possibility of doing a drainage district for the fix there. Empire Village has a problem with South Bar Lake. 3/4 of South Bar Lake is in the village, as is the outlet for South Bar Lake. Lake Michigan is continually throwing sand and plugging the outlet to South Bar, and the levels go up, and then they clean out the outlet and the levels go down. And it's a continual process. I think they did that 60 times this last calendar year. So they're trying to figure out, what do we do next? Should we do a district and then attempt to fix with that tool? And so the village, I think, of Empire is close to a decision. Kind of anticipate them saying yes. I kind of anticipate Suttons Bay Village saying yes. Village, a township, or the county road commission can vote and initiate a district. So that's a quicker way of getting at the districts. One other small one, Glenmere, I call it, a real small area by Little Glen, has potential of us piggybacking with MDOT. So that'll be an interesting one to take a look at. Brian is pretty familiar with very small districts also. So anyway, that's the ones that are farthest along.
Any questions? Commissioner Answer.
The Empire South Bar Lake situation. You know, I understand the exit for South Bar plugs up, but they also have a scouring problem on the beach there where the beach is eroding. Is there a solution that would solve both those problems? Like put a groin out that would stop that sand from moving and maybe solve both problems? I'm just asking a stupid question here.
Yeah, that's what they're looking at, is something that, we met with them, or I met with their DPW and the village council president, I think back in August, and then we went to a meeting around then. Yeah, that's what they're looking at, is something that solves both those things.
Okay.
They're just tired of always having to pay the burden of the expense of the cost, and it's close to around the 4,000 acre district there. There's a large watershed area upstream there. About half of it is, we can't assess it because it's federal land, because it's national park land, but still there's a large number of properties and outside the village that contribute to that. So they're looking at something that would solve both of those, and along with protecting the road. So, yeah.
Any other, Commissioner Watt? No?
Just maybe an obvious question, but on your Timberlea Road, Mount Josh Road, okay. Are you working with the road commission on that one in partnership? I have one more question.
The road commission is involved in that. Number one, they've had to deal with sediment that's come out on Fouch. That north and south segment of the road is almost exactly on the township line.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the district Solon, part of the district Elmwood, so they're involved in that way. They also have 3/4 of that road up from the other side up into the sub is county road, plowed and maintained by the county road commission. So we've been talking with the county.
I'm sorry, the dirt section before it gets out to Mount Josh, is that is county road?
Timberlea Drive
Okay.
hits Fouch in two places. It comes up to the old Timberlea Hill,
Yep,
and that's all county road commission. Then there's a sub up there,
yep.
and it goes to all the sub, and it's all county road commission road.
Oh,
And
okay.
it hits to the 3/4 point, starting to head down to
Mhm.
where it goes the other way,
Mhm.
and there's a sign,
Yep,
and it doesn't go any further. They didn't complete it.
but it's
And-
county road.
No,
It's a dirt road, is
It's
it not?
it's only
Yes.
county, I think, until that point. But I talked to them and they said, well, what if we are doing a project and it is made to county spec? And they said they really look at taking it over. I think it would make their maintenance easier if they could keep going and swing through. So they're
Okay.
looking at the possibility of taking that over.
Because there's no houses from that point on until you get out to the Mount Josh,
Right.
correct? Yeah, there's no houses. So I guess I can see the benefit of the road commission just being able to circle, that kind of makes sense. And if they then took care of, I'm gonna call it Mount Josh, because that's the least confusing for me, then that could take care of the sediment problem on the road, which does happen a lot, I know. With no houses in that section, are the Timberlea residents petitioning for a drainage district there? Or is this just something you are doing under your hat?
The petition came through with signatures from Mount Josh and the stretch between Mount Josh and Fouch, and some from the sub too.
Okay.
So there was a nice mix of signatures, and we'll see how the next batch goes. The person that's leading the charge, so to speak, lives up on Mount Josh, and they had a situation that I want to say 2 years ago, might be somewhere in that range, where power was out, lines were down, things got fixed, power came back on, and a fire erupted with a down line. And the fire and rescue, the fire trucks were coming through and had to stop. They couldn't quite get through because of the storm that had happened and the gullies and all, and it was like, okay, that's a problem. So
Because that's a private road.
I believe it's private there. Mount Joss is private for sure, and I'm thinking that Timberley Drive is private at that point also.
Okay.
It's like platted right
Thank you.
away. So.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that one is interesting in that I think a large amount of the fix will be within an already existing right-of-way. So that'll make things, I think, a lot easier in the garnering of easement.
If I may, just one more question.
Sure.
What is the problem with Lake Bluffs then?
That road, that development was installed, I want to say 40 years ago. And the road was made, it's a gravel road with ditches, and
Pretty steep.
high, wide, and handsome. And when they installed it, I'm sure it worked beautifully. They had check dams and the whole 9 yards. They have not done significant upgrade and maintenance on that road since. They've
And-
done patches. They've
Is that
brought
private?
trucks in and put in some more 22A.
Private or road commission owned?
It's a private, it's a private
Private,
road.
that's what I thought, okay.
The ditches are filled. There are trees that are at least 8 or 9 or 10 inches in diameter that are growing in the ditch. So the ditch lines are filled. The check dams have not been maintained.
So are they petitioning you, Steve?
Yes.
Yes.
The signatures
They
are
are.
in.
Okay.
Signatures are in.
Okay.
So I think with them, one of the things that they were interested in too was possibly paving that road, and they would pay the cost of that, part of it, which is all doable under the drain code as well. So you can, I've done a couple of projects in other counties where it's much more of a paving project and less of a drainage issue, but it's still infrastructure that gets done and completed for the drain district, and then those residents just pay the cost for the additional for the road paving as part of it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, please.
Yes. So then that would bring us to approval of board minutes. We have November 19th, December 31st, and January 14th. Commissioner Sudas.
Could we postpone to next meeting, the January 14th?
Yes.
Then I'll move to approve the Tuesday, November 19th, 2019 minutes as presented.
Support? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Lautner.
So I would move to approve the special Board of Commissioners session of Tuesday, December 31, 2019.
Support? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then we have a couple of late additions, and I thought the first one would put as 10A, and then the second one would be 11E.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
10A for the first one?
Okay.
That's 2%.
No, that's the road patrol. I put it under sheriff, I know it's, I just thought that would be appropriate, but I think it's coming from the clerk. And then the second one would be 11E, or the last thing on the agenda. Commissioner Lautner.
So I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We now have an agenda. Thank you. That brings us then to public comment. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Doug Whitley. I live in Leelanau Township. And earlier this month, I took it upon myself to write an essay about a vision for Leelanau County, basically trying to grasp what I thought to be the major issues that we're familiar with, and what I've written about it won't be new to you. However, I only learned yesterday that you were taking up the goals at tonight's meeting. So I simply want to submit a written document and would hope that you would put it in the record and that it might find its way into future discussions about goals and objectives. I did not bring enough copies, again, a failure on my part, but I do have 5 copies and I'd be happy to leave them with you.
We can make copies.
Yeah. So, and that's it, unless there's a question.
It isn't a time for questions.
Okay.
It's for public comment.
All right, well then,
Thank you.
here's my
Thank you.
document, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
and,
Yeah, go ahead and give one to the clerk.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll make copies and we'll email them to all of you.
Thank you,
Deb.
Doug.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening again, Steve Mikowski. Like, the agenda today is peculiar. It has 10 potentials on it. Not action items, it looks like they're potentials. I find that a little bit confusing. Another observation is that every action item has no dollar signs behind it. We seem to be afraid of telling the public of how many dollars we want to spend, or maybe some of us can construe it, how much we want to waste. I find it odd that we do not want to put the dollar signs behind action items. I discussed this issue with the township board also from time to time, because they have a short memory about recollecting things that the public asks them to do. I want to touch base on one thing. I left with 2 documents with each of you. One of them a cartoon about the drug problem, and the second page consists of a questionnaire that we put forth and slightly modified, asking questions about planning, and we expect that you will participate in it and respond to those questions, and at the next regular meeting you perhaps have them completed for me to understand how well you understand how planning should work by the Leelanau County Planning and Leelanau County Planning Commission. So I again ask you to participate and provide me some answers of how you understand planning and zoning to work, and how much authority county planning and zoning has over private property in our county area. Another item, the early childhood thing is a peculiar item also. I looked up the word fraud in Black's Law Dictionary. I learned to use the dictionary 30 years ago. It's peppered with all kinds of notes. But I used it when we had Leelanau County attempting to install a non-approved sewer project in Leelanau Township, after the township had spent $250,000 of engineering costs on a no-bid basis. So the county got involved in it and confused it some more. But the early childhood thing is bothersome to me, because it seems to have been done under color of law. And to me, in looking at and reading some legal descriptions, I find it has somewhat of appearance of some characteristics of fraud in it. And now we're learning that the electors were not told that on the ballot proposal that they would have to pre-fund the project. I'm not sure if that's being totally clear with electors, but I guess they don't need to know that stuff. We just do things arbitrarily after they vote, the way we want them to happen. And I find that's an abuse of the electors to do that and pre-fund it. Either whoever the promoters were knew of that deficiency, or it was deliberately not advertised to the people on the ballot proposal. I don't know which it was, but I find it very disturbing. So again, as I say, the Golden Baton Award goes to those that promoted it, because they beat the electors into submission to vote for this. And when you have such a narrow vote, such a narrow arrangement, clearly it is not a clamoring by the people to have early childhood taxes imposed upon them. You know, basically, I think for those of you who consider running for office next year, you should be prepared for whatever comes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to our action items, and the first item would be the 2020 Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance renewal. It's found on page 3. Yes.
Move approval of the 2020 Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance renewal rates as provided last week.
Yeah, we have a recommended one here, and it's the green one. I'm sorry. You need it?
I've got it. Oh, if I may?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. I would move to approve Leelanau County Commissioners' agreement between Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Michigan and County of Leelanau, CID number 189745, effective for February 1st, 2020 to January 31st, 2021.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then that brings us now to the Benzie Leelanau District Health Department and the Early Childhood Partnership proposal. It's on page 12.
Do you want to move on to IT?
No, I
Yes.
can.
Commissioner Ansar.
I just have a procedural question here.
Sure.
There's both the proposal and the funding options, and I don't, we had that discussion last week that we wanted to go through the funding options first before we did the proposal.
Would you like to flip them then?
I'm just asking
Yeah, so we can do that,
Should
yeah.
we do that, that's what we decided to do during
Right.
the executive meeting. Can we?
Yes, we can do that now. We can switch it unless somebody has an objection to it. So go, did you want the administrator to talk about it? Because I think he understands it better than most of us. And he's talked with the lawyers.
Well, actually, the clerk and I, do you want to talk about the funding part of it?
Yes.
now? Okay, so just, and help me out here, Michelle and Jen, because you two have done much more work than I have on this. So the ballot proposal states a 5-year period from 2020 to 2024. So the first time it will be in the tax rolls is December of 2020, this December coming up, through the tax rolls of December 2024. So that's a 5-year period. That was on the ballot. So therefore, the option was discussed, is it possible to pre-fund, is that the proper word, Michelle, pre-fund? 1 year? Okay, it would not be a loan, contrary to people, it will not be a loan to the health department. If you approve this, there'll be a contract with the health department. We will make payments as we would for any contract. It's an internal issue how you fund it. If you wish to fund it, you would have to take the money from the general fund this year to pay for whatever contracts you approve in 2020. So it would be a general fund expenditure. You can, however, put the funds back into the fund once the taxes come in starting December of 2020. So you're basically fronting the money up front if you choose that. We checked with our legal counsel and our accounting firm. It's not a common practice. Do you have the option of doing it? The answer is yes. So as the tax rolls are sent out in December of 2020, people pay them, they're due February 15th. Beyond that, there's a penalty. Once those funds come in, then there'll be an internal accounting that money will be paid back. So whatever amount you choose to allocate, whether it's this contract or any other contracts for 2020, will have to come from the general fund. It will not be paid back this year in 2020. That's the key thing. So it'd have to be an allotment from your contingency fund or from the reserve funds for this year. The money will be put back into the account, but it will not be in 2020. So this year, if you wish to do it, it will be a general fund expenditure. In the future, depending on how much is spent this year, if you may have to do this every single year unless in 2020, because it's about almost 800,000 a year, 780,000 I believe. If you don't spend that much, then that money would first go to pay back the funds for this year, and then the remainder amount can be allocated for the following year. But if that amount is greater, then you'd have to do this every year until the end of the 5-year period. Michelle, is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Commissioner Answer.
Do we understand the process that we would need to do that so that we don't generate an audit
Yes.
comment? You know, just because we can do it doesn't mean
No,
that
we spent
it's
significant
an
time with
accounting
our...
problem
Okay.
down the road.
We spent significant time with our chief auditor, and then he asked for a legal opinion confirming from a legal perspective, which Mr. Stoker did, which I think Michelle sent out to all of you.
So there is a process that won't generate audit comments if we understand that process.
We understand, and there would be no audit comments.
Okay.
Commissioner Rushton.
If these funds are allocated early, why would it not be reasonable to request repayment and ask that the program operate on the residual millage for the remainder of the year? Is that an option for us as commissioners?
Say that again, I'm not sure I understood the question.
There is none.
No.
We do not have to pre-fund in the following years, is my point.
That's true if you spend within the amount. So I'm just making these numbers up. This proposed contract with the health department is for $370,000, I think. You'll generate about $780,000 per year. So if you pre-fund this year for $370,000, when the taxes come back next year, the first amount paid off would be to pay us back. The amount left over, if you choose not to spend the full amount, I think that's what you're saying.
Correct.
If you stay within that budget, then you would not have, because there'd be no...
Pre-fund.
I think that was your question, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the point that I'm trying to make, here we are in January, okay? And the millage was, I guess what I'm trying to say here is this programming going to start full tilt January of 2020? Or is this program going to start January 2021 when I think the voters anticipated this programming would start? And if that's the case, if this programming can operate on half the funding, do they need all the funding? This is January. If they're going to operate on half of their funding for the whole year, why do they need all their funding? So why would it not be reasonable to request that they operate on the other half of the millage dollars that will be collected for the following year, 2021?
Commissioner Lautner, you had your hand up? Did you want to say anything or no?
I'll pass right now, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Ansari.
In attempting to answer that question, the millage, as voted for, was for 2020 through 2024. That's what the millage, that's what it said on the millage. The question is, there's two questions. The first question is, do we start the actual implementation in 2020 or do we wait until 2021? There's an option there. Because we won't get the majority of the money until 2021 for the first year. So what was the intent of the millage? And I think the intent was for it to be 2020 through 2024, just like it said. Now, the other question is, we have a proposal from the health department to start implementation of this, and it's a ramp up. So there would be less expense, I anticipate, less expense in 2020 because not all the services are going to start right away. They are going to ramp up, they have to hire people, get the project going. So we may not spend the full amount in that was approved in 2020. That is an entirely possible outcome here because of the ramp-up period. But then in successive years, the amount would be greater because they would be ramped up and doing it for the full year. So this board, just like every other millage, the voters approved a certain amount. We can't increase the amount, but we can decrease it every year to say, hey, we don't need this full amount. So in 2020, if we don't spend the full amount, you don't spend the full amount, and you don't, the money you just don't charge that full amount in the end. Meaning, we might collect the full amount for 2020, because basically you are collecting that amount in 2020. You are assessing the amount in 2020, but you may not collect it until the full amount until 2021. People have the option in December to say, do I want to pay this bill this year or next year? They have the option to do that. Everybody does. You can choose to pay it based on your personal situation and when you want that bill to hit. So I would anticipate we will collect something this year, but not the full amount, obviously, because there will be people that will defer until the taxes are actually due, the final date, before they start incurring penalties. So, does that make sense?
No.
What I said? Do you understand the different options?
Of course I do. I pay
Okay.
taxes just like you do, Tony, but the point that I'm making is those dollars are not going to be available to the health department.
In
The full
2020.
amount of the allocation will not be available to the health department in 2020.
If we choose to start the program in 2020, you are correct. We will have to
So there,
transfer.
One person should have the floor.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, we don't want to have a conversation here about
so
this,
my
you know?
point is, they're going to be operating the first year on half of the millage. Well, where are they going to get the dollars from to operate? Through the general fund? Are we going to front $700,000, $800,000 to the health department? And what's the repercussions for that? Is that fair to the citizens? It's almost like double taxing them.
No.
I just.
Really? We take that money, we invest that money for infrastructure projects and so on and so forth for the county. So not only do we lose out on that by pre-funding, it's going to cost the citizens more dollars to carry the infrastructure load because we no longer have those investment dollars available to offset the citizens. And on another note, if I may, have we even looked at the health department? Have we looked at their finances? Do we know if they're healthy enough to do this? In reviewing some of their audit information, in 2015, they were 90% funded in their pensions. Today, they're 70%. That tells me there's some sort of an issue there. We have not vetted. We have not went out for RFPs as suggested. Throw it off to the health department. They can do it all. Hurry up and fund it because we want it started today. I think it's disgraceful. I have said that from the beginning. This whole process is a disgrace. Now, am I saying that the services are not needed? Am I saying that the county should not perform in such a way for these services? That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the way this board went about it, to me, is shameful. And we continue to march down that same road.
Well, I guess I had a question about, does this create additional work for the county clerk in the audit if we're going to fund it ahead of time? So it doesn't really affect I mean, I know we've already created and then, I mean, she mentioned about the interest, so, I mean, it does do that if we do it. But can the county afford $728,000 to front, the thing? They're asking for $375,000, but I thought that was for a 6-month period. Was that for the full year?
You want us to respond?
Do we ask our treasurer?
Well, I just don't know the answer to these questions because, I mean, what was presented was $375,000 and in somewhere I read, and I'm not sure that this was the first 6 months or something for it. Commissioner Sudas Little, did you have an answer to that?
I think Lisa Peacock answered it very well when she was here last week.
Yeah.
She explained that she's bringing on the two, I believe she's going to call them community workers, to continue the service. I'm sorry?
He can't hear you.
There, is that better?
Yes.
Whoa, that is better. Okay. It's hard to hear how you're coming across. My apologies. I said Lisa Peacock addressed this very well when she was here last week, and she explained that initially they would be bringing on the two community workers. The reason they're doing that is so that services can be continued not only for those that are currently in the parenting community program, but their whole concept behind expanding it is to be able to pick up those that are receiving services through the Medicaid-based program, which only lasts 1 year, and then those families and those children at age 1 age out. The parenting communities would pick up those families and carry them onward. She also indicated that what she wanted to do was to bring on the halftime, I think they're calling it, well, we probably don't have an exact title, but the early childhood coordinator who would help develop the positions, the assessment of exactly what they would need this year. I think right now we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves in the sense that the health department is trying to tell us they need a little bit of time to figure out exactly what they do need. They may not need more than that amount this year. Their plan may be to bring the entire program up next year. So, and in doing so, it would fit in, it would address a lot of the concerns that are being raised here tonight. But the reason we're going with the health department in our recommendation is, and I'm talking about the recommendation from the Early Childhood County Committee, falls right in line again with all of the many reasons that Lisa Peacock cited last week when she was here. It's hard to argue why you would go outside of our health department when it fits, it answers all of the, it fills all the checks in the boxes that you would ever possibly want to fill. So I hope that, does that address your question?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, I'm not sure about how the funding comes.
I think that's, I'll turn
Yeah.
over to Michelle and Jan to address.
But I also wondered, I guess I wondered that, you know, are we doing what's best for the children in going through this program? And because it seems to me that some of the star witnesses and the members of the board are the ones who are being hired. And that concerns me. When she named off some of the people that she's hiring, they were actually the people who were witnesses and said they were members of that committee. So I mean, there seems to be a, what would you call it? You know, it's a conflict of interest. You know, that's what I would see when you have a person as a witness or as a member who's actually being hired now with these funds. And so I you know, that's a concern that I've been thinking about all week. You know, when she started naming off the people and they were in the stands talking. You know.
Do you want me to address this?
Well, I'm just telling you it. I don't know if you want to. I mean,
Because you're incorrect. That's why
I'm not incorrect. I know the people that she's hiring, and I know they were here witnessing, and they were mad at me after the meeting because I didn't call on them a second time. So, I mean, I know I'm correct about this. Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I just wondered if we have changed lead auditors from Lisa Peacock's husband to Paul Matz, or is her husband still our
Mr.
lead?
Peacock just gives a presentation, he's not involved.
He's not our lead auditor. Okay, so Paul Matz is our lead auditor?
Has been for
Steve
how many?
Peacock never serves as lead auditor, he's the liaison.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, well, to come back to, I think a very good point brought up is, and I've asked this similar question and concerns with our health department, and perhaps one of the reasons that they're super excited about $1 million a year is that the health department rarely closes out the year in the black. It is unbelievable how short of funds they are every single year for a number of reasons. So this is quite a big windfall for the health department. Our question on the table is, where are we going to find these funds to pre-fund this when ballot language said funds would be collected in 2020, which is the end of the year, December at best, and probably into 2021. So for us just to say we're going to pull $370,000 out of our general fund really shorts us, in my opinion, because when we have a sheriff come to us and say, hey, do you have $100,000 to help a boat grant, we wonder whether we can find that $100,000. You know, we find any extra money, we put it towards our MERS payment. Our Parks and Recreation, you know, is wondering, hey, if we can get this grant, can you fund nearly $100,000? And we all have questions of, well, where would we find that money? And yet we're just going to pull an advance of almost $400,000 out of our general fund. I don't think we should. I really don't. I think it's quite ugly. I think it's messy, and at best would be what Deb was saying, and hold it to at least the amount that could be collected in 2020 for the years 2020 and 21 if this goes forward, period. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Redpath.
If you refer to your minutes from the executive committee meeting, I think a lot of these things were stated very clearly by Lisa Peacock, that it was estimated at a 6 to 12 month level, that the interim agreement is for, that it will not be more than that. It's important that they estimate on a higher end so that they can see what they can do. And she continues on about the perception that they were not appropriately involved, that was due to her health department, and she was very distressed by this, that a content matter expert is something else completely. I don't understand the conversation today about why you wouldn't understand what a professional presented to us a week ago. So it's in our minutes right here. All the things that we're talking about explains it very clearly.
Use the microphone, please.
We can't hear anything you say.
Really?
Really.
Okay. Sorry. Would you like me to repeat that? I was reading from the minutes.
That's much better when you speak into the microphone.
Okay,
Are you through?
I am.
Okay. Commissioner Lott?
Well, it's very interesting because the names she read off are the very people who did present, did push, and push heavily this program to the taxpayers. I hate to point out, but since you did, Commissioner Rettenbach, that was at least the third time that Ms. Peacock changed her story on early childhood already. So I find that sad, but it's at least the third time, and that's very distressing to me. I shared that with you, didn't I, Commissioner Ansorgi, at the end of last week's meeting?
I still need a motion.
Do we need a motion on this? I thought last week we said we didn't need a motion on this, but we did on the second part. Which are you asking
Okay.
for a motion for, Mr. Chairman?
All right, so let's move on to the second part.
Thank you.
All right.
Gotta find it.
Page 12. Page 12.
Commissioner Rushton?
I have a question for Michelle in regards to this. If we're pulling these dollars out of our general fund, how does that impact our extra MERS payment this year?
The MERS payment's already budgeted, doesn't
I'm
it?
sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry. The MERS payment is already in the budget. Didn't we budget that?
I'm referring
250.
to if the commissioners would want to allocate more dollars towards our MERS.
Well, right now, as of today's report, you've got 5.7 million in general fund cash. You've already collected 300,000 more in revenue than budgeted so far.
Show no impact, is what you're saying.
The only concern when we spoke with the treasurer today is that if the board chooses to approve, that it maybe not go out in one lump sum, that a payment schedule in the contract or however it's done be established.
Commissioner Lott?
I'm wondering if I may move on to IT motion.
No, we're still in discussion here.
We don't have a motion on the floor.
Commissioner Ansel, can only raise my hand to be recognized until I'm recognized. I would move to approve the Leelanau Early Childhood Millage Planning and Development Proposal with the inclusion of providing quarterly reporting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Now, if we
What?
may, roll call, please.
Oh, roll call, please.
I'll do this.
Commissioner Ansorgi?
Yes.
Chairman Bonnick?
No.
Commissioner Lautner?
No.
Commissioner Rettenbach?
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton?
No,
Commissioner Sudislittle?
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel?
Yes.
4 yes, 3 no.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll...
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Do we need to authorize the administrator? It's just a procedural question. Do we need to authorize?
Well, based on this vote, I will work with our legal counsel to drop contract that you would have to approve at next month.
That's
So
what I'm
this is
asking.
not
Procedurally,
official.
we have to-
I assume, I was going to get clarification, I assume you want to see the legal contract before you approve it.
Yes. Well, we would have to vote on it here.
Yes.
So it'll be next, at our
It'll be
next
on the agenda.
regular meeting.
Procedurally, do I need a separate motion to authorize him?
If you want to, you can.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
Okay.
This does authorize him to do
Okay.
that.
So I will work with legal counsel, draft a contract that would have to be approved by both parties, by both boards, because their board would have to approve a contract also. I believe their board approved the concept, as I understand.
Just like we did.
Yeah, so next month, at your February meeting, hopefully there'll be a draft contract for you to look at. If all details are worked out, because their attorney wants to look at the contract also.
Any other questions? We'll move on to information technology. Commissioner Wessel.
Move to approve the support agreement with BSB Communications for phone system support in the amount of $8,825 with funds to come from the telephone fund number 656.
Second?
Commissioner Rush.
I would just like to point out to the clerk, in this particular motion, it says, motion made by Wessel and motion seconded by Wessel
Oh, from the committee
from the
minutes?
prior week.
We will go listen to that and send a corrected set out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can't do that?
Well, with this board, anything's possible.
There's a lot of things going on, so maybe that's what's going on.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And then we're at B. Commissioner Lautner.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the renewal of the maintenance agreement for the Barracuda Essential Spam Filter in the amount of $5,750 with the funds to come from Data Processing Fund 636.
Support.
Commissioner Ansori.
We're not recommending, we are actually approving tonight.
Yes.
Which will be an automatic approval since it's our regular board meeting. No other way.
You want her to change the wording on it?
I do.
Approve.
Would you,
Move to approve.
is that okay with the second?
Absolutely.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, then that brings us to the approval of, potential approval of rapid recovery backup. Commissioner Wessel.
Move to approve the renewal of the maintenance contract for DLT backup software and the purchase of 2 additional licenses for a total of $4,478.14 with funds to come from Data Processing Fund number 636.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then we go to the Conservation District, potential approval of annual district work orders. Commissioner Rettbach.
Move to approve approval of 2020 work order, instead of word order, it should be work order. Number 1, conservation, education, and technical assistance in the amount of $40,343.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Rettbach.
I move to approve the 2020 work order number 2, soil erosion and sedimentation control.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Commissioner Rettbach.
Move to approve the work order number 3, water quality monitoring in the amount of $5,000.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So that brings us to the Planning Commission, and this would be a roll call vote on this. It's a resolution.
You have equalization.
Yeah,
Did you
skip-
We
do
skipped
that?
over number 5.
I'm sorry, I crossed it off, okay. Forgive me. All right, proposed a revision of the database maintenance intergovernmental agreement. Commissioner Rettenbach.
Move to approve the intergovernmental agreement as reviewed and updated by corporate counsel.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I'm sorry, now we come to the Planning Commission. Commissioner Wessel.
Move to approve the county general plan as submitted.
Support?
So this will be a roll call. Is there any comments?
Just a question. So, as submitted being your resolution 2020 dash, correct? Should we state it's going to be that
Yes.
resolution?
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ansorgi,
Yes.
Chairman Bonick,
No.
Commissioner Lautner,
No.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sudislittle,
Yes.
4-3.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us then to senior services. With the Area Agency on Aging in Northwest Michigan. Commissioner Wessel.
I move to allow Leelanau County Senior Services to accept a contribution from the Area Agency on Aging of Northwest Michigan for providing seniors with MIPPA beneficiary outreach assistance totaling $1,000 and placed into the Leelanau Senior Services contributions from other agency account ending in 677.000.
Second.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner.
Where did that come, where did you get that wording?
I think you just did the
I think he did the
second
one, yeah, he
and
did the
third
second one, but that's, so we're doing B actually,
Okay.
which is the way we should have probably had it presented, I think, that we get the grant first and then we'll spend it, you know? So everyone understands that, we're doing actually B here.
Okay, I was confused.
Yes, that's all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Now we'll go to A.
bottom.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, I would move to approve Leelanau County Senior Services to enter into an agreement with the Area Agency on Aging of Northwest Michigan to provide MIPPA medical improvements for Patient and Provider Act, beneficiary outreach, and assistance services for seniors. The contract agreement will begin October 1, 2019 and continue through September 29, 2020.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So then that should bring us to the Park and Recreation Commission. Looking at the final draft, 20 to 2024. Commissioner Lautner.
I've moved to approve the final draft for the 2020 through 2024 Communities, Parks, and Recreation Plan.
Second.
This will be, isn't this a roll call here?
I can
Or
do
no?
it.
No, I guess it's not.
No, it's
No,
not.
the next one.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So then this, I'm sorry, this brings us to the resolution. Commissioner Rettenbach.
Move to approve Leelanau County Resolution 2020, number to be assigned, adoption of the 2020 through 2024 Community Parks and Recreation Plan.
Support.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes?
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sudislittle,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Commissioner Ansorgi,
Yes.
Chairman Bonick,
Yes.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
6-1.
Thank you. All right, then that brings us to the C then, the MNRTF grant application. Commissioner Lautner.
I would move to approve the Parks and Recreation Commission's request to apply for a 2020 Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, NMRTF grant, in the amount of $331,900 with the county to match $95,000.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
I think we have to have a roll call on that.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
No.
Commissioner Sudas Little,
I'm sorry, I got myself up here. Let me make sure I'm on the right one.
This one right here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Chairman Bonick,
No.
Commissioner Ansorgi.
No.
4-3.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes 4-3. So now we're looking at the contract with Gosling Zuback Engineering. Commissioner Wessel.
Move to approve the agreement between Leelanau County and Gosling Guback Engineering Services for work on the 2020 MNRTF grant application process in the amount not to exceed $2,000, funds to come from Parks and Recreation budget.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. Motion passes 6-1. And then that brings us to the county clerk, the request to purchase MERS credit service for Mr. Bowen. Commissioner Lautner,
Okay.
this is a resolution.
I would move to approve resolution 2020- for Everard B. Bowen to purchase 2 years, 6 months of generic service credit for MERS, Municipal Employees Retirement System, as described in the application for the additional service credit purchased at a cost approximately $56,009 to be paid for by said employee.
Support.
And this is also a resolution, so we have to have a roll call.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes.
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes.
Commissioner Sudas Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes.
Chairman Bonick,
Yes,
Commissioner Ansorgi.
Yes.
7-0.
thank you. So that brings us to the sheriff's office, the potential, for the video camera replacement purchase.
Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes.
move to recommend to the board.
We don't have to recommend.
Right, I'll rephrase that. I move to approve all expenditures for the jail camera upgrade project from fund ending in 970.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So then that brings us to our first 10A, the road patrol grant.
May I clarify something? Sure. The amount in the motion is correct. The grant is increasing by $7,780, which is good news. However, the numbers on top, when it talks about total cost, that is the state cost, that's not our cost. So I just don't want to confuse it. Our grant was $36,955. With the extra money, it'll be $44,735. Those numbers came from the state, but they put their total cost, everything on it. So I just want to, the majority of that we're paying for. So I just want to make sure there was no confusion. The amount of the increase is correct, the motion is correct.
Okay, because I thought that was an awful lot.
Yes,
I didn't
I wanted
understand
to
that.
clarify
Yeah,
that.
Yeah. Jeez.
We went off the state, and they have a unique way of doing their math, I think.
I guess so. Commissioner Rush.
I would move to accept the additional $7,780 award for fiscal year 2020 for the secondary road patrol grant, funds to be deposited into fund ending in 543.001.
Board. Commissioner Ansel.
This, the lower amount was in the budget, we're just adding
Yes,
the additional.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yeah. This is additional funds, and this has happened several years. At one time, as you remember, this started off at 100% funded, and it kept being reduced. Now it's about a third funded position.
Right, I think
It
the
works.
numbers that were given is what it actually costs for
Yes,
this.
yeah. Those are the state numbers.
Right,
Oh.
yes. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then that brings us to administration. and the League of Women Voters.
I can give an update.
Sure.
Last week, you asked to look at policy and procedures, and also refer this to Buildings and Grounds. So there's a Buildings and Grounds Committee scheduled for December 31st at 10 a.m.
January.
I'm sorry.
January.
Oh, sorry, yes, not December 31st. January, thank you. January 31st at 10 a.m. The commissioners on the Buildings and Grounds are Commissioner Rushton and Commissioner Bunnick. We have a draft policy that actually we've been working with the Parks and Recs with anyway, so that will be referred to the committee on the 31st of January, and we hope to report back to the board at the February meeting.
Did you get any from?
Yeah, we'll send them to you here shortly.
Okay, but I thought you were going to talk to the, our council.
Yeah, the ones we have actually is from them.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
All right.
that, we've been working with Parks and Rec, so it's the same thing.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I would move to move forward till February, the League of Women Voters request for a tree and plaque donation request.
Second.
All those, yes.
Somebody was gonna check to see if there was a original landscaping plan.
Yeah, we're
for it.
still looking. We,
Okay.
as of now, have not found it.
Okay.
Did you talk to Jerry Coleman?
No, not about, I talked to Jerry, but not about that. We've been looking for a file, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I will check with Jerry though. Thank you.
It's a good idea. No. Yes, Commissioner Law.
I'm not going to support the motion just for the simple fact that I don't know how much time the committee is going to need to do the work that we asked them to do. So by rushing it to February, I just don't think it's necessary. When we discussed last week that, you know, optimal tree planting time is spring anyway. So I just don't want to put any rush on the committee to have to hurry and try to meet a second time if they need to before our executive meeting.
Commissioner Ansari.
I'm gonna support just because if it's not ready, we can put it off for another month. So that's all, we always have that option.
Right, well, and I would say it gives us a chance to give an update, you know, at the committee, if we don't have something ready.
Yeah, that way it's on there, we
Right.
don't lose it.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. So then that brings us to the...
6-1.
I'm sorry, 6-1. My mistake. All right, the Verizon Tower update.
Yeah, as of today, we forwarded our proposal to Verizon's legal counsel, and we asked if they could respond back by the 4th of February, so that way we can put it on the agenda for February discussion. I will forward that proposal to all of you this week. It's not the same as what they proposed to us. It's our proposal to them. And has financial terms and some other modifications that we made.
Can we just move it keep it on the February executive
I'm
board?
assuming we're having it on the February agenda. so.
Okay.
But you'll have a
Want to
draft
make a
of that
motion?
here shortly.
Well, according to board rules, we should have a motion, which I'll make. I move the Verizon Tower update forward to another next month.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. It is, any commissioner can request, and it doesn't have to go through a vote of the, you know, the board to put something on the agenda.
Correct.
Just so you know, it can just be requested.
I think that in the
But it's, yeah, go ahead.
that we've just decided that if we've decided on something at this meeting, that it wouldn't go forward automatically, and that we did need to, you know. So
I think that's
I think
the,
it's in the board rules.
okay.
That's for executive, I believe.
I don't know. I'm
Well.
not going to. All right, so now that brings us then to Leelanau Clean Water.
Yeah, another update, and as I stated last week, we all, I think, agree that we appreciate all the work they're doing. It's just the structure we're talking about. Mrs. Gale and I met with Clean Water Wednesday, explained the discussion. It went extremely well. They were grateful. They are grateful that they have to July 1st, and actually they thought what their goals are will be better suited to go in a different format. And so actually when we got done, they gave us a round of applause for our efforts. And it took a year to get to this point, but they feel comfortable with it now. And they appreciate the fact that we are willing to work with them and have everything in place by the 1st of July. And so then the Madam Clerk there reached out to legal counsel to get opinion, how do we rescind what currently was passed in 2008. So Michelle has a copy, and I think it was passed out to all of you. So this basically starts the process. It does not eliminate clean water. It means we will work with them to July 1st and come up with a structure. But I really felt good about the meeting last Wednesday morning, and I think they felt good about it too, once they completely understood it and so
What
forth.
we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lautner.
I move that Leelanau County Board of Commissioners adopt Resolution 2020-resolution abolishing the Leelanau County Task Force on Water Quality.
Second.
This will have to be a roll call. Commissioner Wesson.
Question, and I'm pleased that the discussions went well with Leelanau Clean Water, and I support finding another structure. I'm not sure I understand why we need to rescind it, take action tonight to rescind it in 4 months. I'd prefer to rescind it after we see that there's something in place. And I don't know what the rush is on it.
Commissioner Answer.
You know, from my perspective, this has been out there for a long time, and it's not a rush thing at all. It's just giving them a drop dead date finally to get this done. That's the way I look at it. So I am going to support the motion just because it's been hanging out there for a long time.
Any other comments? This will be a roll call. Yeah, Commissioner Sudas
Okay,
Little.
I just want to be sure I'm understanding. So basically, it's saying, whereas the county commission believes that delaying this change until July 1st, 2020 will assist in allowing for the transition, blah, blah, blah. But the resolving is that the rescinds with the resolution. Oh, but it's effective July 1st.
Exactly.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was reaching for. It isn't effective tonight.
It's-
It's effective July 20.
Right.
Got
They
it.
have 6 months to resolve
Yeah.
the
No.
issue of finding the structure they want to operate under.
Right. Makes sense. I just wanted to be sure I was correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Lautner,
Yes?
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Yes?
Commissioner Rushton,
Yes,
Commissioner Sudas Little,
Yes.
Commissioner Wessel,
Yes?
Chairman Bonnick,
Yes,
Commissioner Ansorgi.
Yes.
7-0.
thank you. All right, then that brings us then to the 2020 goals.
I passed out the sheet last week, and you decided if you wanted to have some dialogue on it this evening. I did not receive any new goals. One commissioner gave me their top choices of goals, but you wanted to have a dialogue today.
Go ahead.
I,
Yes, yes, you're right.
Patricia Sotis Little and Deb Rushton and I joined a group of people this morning in I thought, a very productive meeting on land bank possibilities, and I did have a conversation with John Gallagher afterwards, and I'd like to add a goal to our list. I know we're here to bring it down a little bit, but I think we heard today that there's some real potential, and I brought copies of this. I'd like to hand it out, but add this to our list for discussion, if I could do that. There's one for the clerk's office there. As it's coming around, what we heard today was land banks are the most powerful redevelopment agency in our community. The Leelanau County Land Bank Authority aims to efficiently acquire and develop tax foreclosed, vacant, blighted, obsolete, and abandoned properties for economic development and to support workforce and affordable housing. I'd like our goal to be to assist the land bank and assist the brownfield in helping with that process and using the land bank for economic development, workforce housing, and young family housing in our county. So that is my recommendation to add to the list of goals. And I think John supports that. I think Trudy would support that. And Deb was there this morning, and Patricia was there this morning. I thought we heard a very powerful message that we can do better.
Commissioner Redpath.
I thought that the information that was handed out to us during public comment about affordable housing speaks to these same things, and it's about a collaborative effort of working together with builders, financial institutions, land bank, employers, governments, land bank, and the need to collaborate. And I really appreciate the clarification of what we're doing. I attended the dedication of the Maple City home that was land bank funded and built by Habitat for Humanity last spring. And it's heartwarming to see people move into a home and have that kind of cooperation with our government and Habitat. So very much in favor of this housing law.
Commissioner Lochner.
Just for clarification, what are a couple of terms or meanings when you say assist? What is the purpose of assist? What's behind assist?
Explain assist, is that your question?
Yes. Yes, what's the definition?
Are you through then with that?
Well, it's my first question.
Okay.
Somebody has a definition of assist.
Okay, do you want someone to answer? 'Cause
Yes,
Commissioner
please.
Wessel has it. Okay. Commissioner Wessel, I'll give you the floor.
Well, I think John and Trudy and members of the land bank would be better able to answer that, but I know that the treasurer comes to the county commission on occasion with land bank properties and asks for action. And I think we need to ask the treasurer how we might support using land bank to increase the inventory of affordable housing in our county. And we heard this morning that that is possible. We heard this morning that it was possible to use a land bank for financing of development properties for rental and single-family housing. And assist would be doing whatever the land bank and whatever the treasurer says we might do to help that process along.
Are you through?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansar.
I have a concern with that broad of a definition. You know, historically, we have, you know, the land bank has taken over individual properties that we have worked with, REACH or Habitat for Humanity, and, you know, they end up, you know, doing these onesie-twosie things. And, you know, I don't want to minimize that, but that's not going to solve the affordable housing problem. But there are other locations where they take a very large piece of land bank property, and the county becomes the developer and starts a large development using the land bank property, but they're sinking money into it too, you know, and the idea is that they will eventually get it back, but I'm not ready to I'm not ready to drink that Kool-Aid yet, you know, I want more information. So that's my concern with that broad of a definition.
Commissioner Lochner.
Okay, my second question was the definition of increasing the inventory. And my concern comes in that sometimes it works for us. John has brought us a couple of pieces of property that worked, as Tony said, that worked for us, and I was on board with that. But I'm a little concerned about the increasing of the inventory and what that means exactly. So I would want to know a little bit more about it. I haven't had a chance to talk to John. I know John does have some interest in this. So I'd want to know a little bit more about it personally.
Commissioner West.
If we were to leave this on the list, what I would like to see is have the two people that presented this morning to the group downstairs come before us, and they said they would, and have a discussion about how that might work. And we could have a condensed version of what three of us listened to this morning.
Commissioner Sulis.
That's exactly what I was going to suggest, because those of us there had the benefit of hearing firsthand about the tools that address some of the things raised were exactly what you're saying, Commissioner Answorthy. But I think everybody needs to hear that and some of the examples in context to get a real good understanding, and then we can craft a goal that is more on target for what the land bank might and brownfield authorities might want and need.
Mr. Rushton.
One of the things that I took away from that presentation this morning was there's a lack of developers in our communities. And the reason for that is their willingness to build homes in order for them to get a return on their investment. And in a nutshell, what they shared was through land bank, brownfield, some of the legislative wording has been changed to incorporate some of those costs over using the TIF program to allow for these developers to capitalize with their return of investment. There was some discussion about increasing inventory to land bank or brownfield. But how do we do that? Do we go out there and condemn properties? I'm not sure their explanation of increasing inventory. If the properties come to us, tax foreclosure wise, this may be an excellent tool for us to use to put in affordable housing, because the mechanisms are currently in place to allow that. But there again, it's contractors to do the work. That's a problem. That may change down the road, but I mean, I'm not opposed to having them come in and speak to us. Maybe they could answer some of these questions, but I believe Commissioner Answorthy is correct. This is not going to fix our affordable housing problem in Leelanau County. So I don't know that we need to add that to this. You've got in the goals, I see that one of the requests is to advance or address workforce housing. So I think that comes under that umbrella, personally, because I don't think you're giving us a specific target to shoot for.
Any other comments on this? Or other goals?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to speak to one I added to, and I was reading in the National Associations of Counties materials, and I added to the list, and before everybody says no, I'd like to speak to it. I would like to have us discuss, as a goal, develop, and adopt a county code of ethics for us. And I'd like to read a paragraph from the National Association of Counties, because I like why they say we ought to have one. Most people interpret ethical conduct in black and white. There are right things to do, and then there are wrong things. However, upon entering into public office, many public officials quickly realized that a vast array of ethical dilemmas fall into a gray area where the right thing to do is not easily apparent. Making the right choice in a difficult situation is not always so straightforward. In many instances, just the appearance of wrongdoing, whether illegal or unethical activity, has actually occurred. Then it goes on to say, according to the county manager of Arlington County, Virginia, when making a difficult ethical decision, government officials should be able to ask themselves, would I be willing to defend my actions on the front page of the newspaper, and could I do it successfully? A code of ethics for a county or local municipality can be a useful tool in eliminating ethical confusion and misunderstandings. I believe that a code of ethics for us would cause us to have some discussion about how we want to do business and make decisions together. And I'm not suggesting that any of us are unethical, but I think it would be worth our time to develop a county code of ethics for county commission. And I would add that to the agenda and ask if we might consider that as a goal for this year.
Commissioner Rush.
In response to that, I would suggest that we follow our own policy and procedures to begin with. And two, how does us developing a code of conduct change public opinion when they actually hear what goes on? Code of ethics, do we not have a certain level of language in our policies and procedures? How we're to act on the board? We violate those rules all the time.
Commissioner West.
If what Commissioner Rushton says is true, then obviously she's supporting the need to have the conversation that I'm suggesting we have.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, to keep this process going, I've been working with goals for 30 years, and based on research, you really should have no more than 6 goals to focus on. And these are things that you do not do during the normal course of business. So there's some things in here I think we're going to do anyway, but I suggest we take them off the list as goals because they're more either become our standard practice or procedure, or we're going to do them anyway. They're not goals. One is, I'll just go through the list, continue to be proactive on MERS. You put it in your budget, you do it every year, you have for 30 years. That really is not a goal. It's budgeted, we're going to do it, you're going to bring it up, whether it's a goal or not, you're going to continue to look at that. 2, when we look at the courthouse HVAC project, you started that already, we're going to continue it, it's going to be done here, this phase, we're going to come up with you with other options. That's something you're going to, whether you list as a goal or not, you're still going to have to deal with that, one way or the other. Same thing with the senior services millage and the recycling. That's your responsibility. You have to make a decision this year how to proceed with those 2 elections. So in my opinion, that's not a goal. The substance abuse, this is year number 4. You have a task force. You approved Commissioner serving on it. You budgeted it during the budget process. So that's going to continue anyway. On the workforce housing, I thought you assigned that to the Planning Commission. There's a group working on that, has for I think 4 years already. They're going to continue to work on that. If you want to make it a high priority, that's your option. Also, when you look at the policy of develop a policy and accepting donations for the government campus, you basically are doing that anyway. We're starting that process. It's giving you next month's agenda. So if you want to start focusing on more narrow things, I would recommend that you take those off the list as goals, because you're going to do them anyway.
Commissioner West.
I understand that, and of course we've got too many.
Yeah.
Of course we do, but I would see some value in having a special meeting to discuss our priorities and discuss our goals. I'm afraid if we just say to the Planning Commission, you take care of the housing, and we don't reaffirm that that's something that we value and it's important to us and it's one of our goals, it gets lost. So I would like to pare it down, but I would like to suggest that we take more than 45 minutes in an evening meeting to do it, and that we have a special session, maybe at the end of the executive committee in February, and we really get some discussion going about these goals. One of the ones we haven't talked about, but I think the whole issue of our water resources ought to be a goal for us. And that gets involved in plastic, it gets involved in pesticide, it gets involved in runoff, it gets involved with what Steve Christensen's working on. And I'd like to have some discussion before we take, the only one I don't want to have any discussion on is the goal that we don't set any goals. I think that ought to come off, and then we ought to have some discussion. We ought to have
I
some
thought that was the
discussion.
best goal on there.
So I would like to have, if I would entertain a discussion about having a special session.
I'm good with that. In executive meeting in February.
So do you want to make a motion for that, or you just want to just plan on, we'll just put it on the, as
Put it on the
planning on
agenda.
45 minutes, it's on our agenda, we'll just keep it on there, and we'll do it in the executive, and plan on having 45 minutes or more, because I think it might take more. But, any other thing, anything else, anyone else? Yes.
The administrator suggested on Tuesday that we all send him our rank order of the top 6 or something. That might be a way to get focused for that
Be
meeting.
prepared for that.
Well, we did the last few years, it just keeps you focused if there's agreement on some of them, and there'll be some that there's no agreement on, so that way you can focus on the ones that are priorities. Doesn't mean you have to pick them, but at least I think it'll help move the dialogue along.
Top 5 or top 6?
6. 6.
Okay.
If we can get it down to 10 out of those 6, we'll do well.
You're right.
Anything else on goals? Yes, Commissioner
Well, if
Lautner.
we all select as goals, no goals, then we won't come up with added regulation and taxation on our citizens, as happened this last year. So I think that we should consider no goals, just other than do the county's business. So I was quite serious about that goal.
Any other comments? All right, so then that'll bring us to the 2% allocation.
Yeah, we received notification last, I believe, Thursday on the grant, and we were quite successful this round. And so you have a sheet there to list all of them that were successful. All but one got funded this year.
Commissioner Redenbach.
I move that we accept the 2% allocation awards from the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians as follows. Family Court, Youth Groups Kayak Replacement, $10,000. MSUE, AmeriCorps STEAM Project, $8,729. Parks and Recreation, Youth Works, Invasive Species Eradication, $12,000. Probate Court, Leelanau Christian Neighbors, $15,000. Solid Waste Council Tire Recycling Program, $6,500.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye. So the motion passes 6-1. Yes.
The Family Court is replacing some kayaks. I'm assuming they have old kayaks that we're gonna see a list on the auction list.
I don't
I don't know what shape that they're in, if they're a total replacement, or if they're even able to turn over in an auction.
We can find
You
out.
can find out what's going on there.
I don't honestly know, we'll find out.
But, my assumption is if we're replacing them, the old ones we will see on our
Maybe.
get rid of list.
We'll find out. We'll find out.
Could be, we'll find out.
Anything else? So then we have review of financials. Commissioner Redenbach.
Well, I thought it was very interesting that they, on Register of Deeds now has all of these refunds going on. Can you explain that to me?
It has to do with the old software, the new software, and they can't replenish those banks. And she is going through them all. I mean, it's a ton, but we waited to group them all together for quicker.
Oh, okay, so
entry.
this
We're
is kind
hoping
of,
she's almost done.
this is kind of the cleaning of house. and that's-
She's trying to balance the funds and zero them out. They haven't been spent.
Okay.
And she can't keep them, because I asked.
Okay.
And she's happy to entertain any questions. She said if anyone has questions, to just please call her, and she'll give you a far better explanation than what I just did.
Any other questions? Commissioner Long?
No, I had sent a question to Johanna earlier in the day, and so thanks to her for answering me that. I just thought it was interesting that this was the first time I could remember all of claims and accounts being all this one item. But Jen further explained it this evening too. So, and it makes a lot of sense, as you said, to do them all in big batches and get them out. So it makes sense. So, and we're not too far into the year to do it. That made a lot of sense to me too. So, thank you for the explanation.
Commissioner Rushton?
I just have an inquiry. I noticed that the rapid response placards were placed at the Pathfinder School. Is that the last of our schools now, or all of our schools? Do they have the placards in place?
I know several do. We can certainly call over and ask the undersheriff tomorrow and send you an email.
I would really
think that they do.
I'd like to know that.
Based on, I was meeting with the sheriff, and I
The
got the
sheriff?
impression that they were done.
Well, I see
Yeah.
there's one for Pathfinder.
No, but I'm saying outside of that, I thought the other schools,
Were
Leland,
complete.
Glen Lake, Suns Bay, and Northport were completed.
Okay.
What about St. Mary's?
I'd like to
That I
know
don't
that.
know.
I'd like to
Right.
know that that's in place for
All right.
our kids in the schools and our
Okay.
leadership there.
Any other questions about the finances?
I'll find out about St. Mary's also.
Okay. Then we have a committee reports, any recommendations or resolutions? No? How about staff reports? Commissioner West?
Just a quick, and I don't think you did it today, Chet, but you're going to send out the ticker. But as your representative on the Community Mental Health Board, there is an issue on the Grand Traverse County believing they're paying more than their fair share. And we did hear from the Director of Community Mental Health today, and that issue is probably going to be heating up in terms of how do we pay for county services. Leelanau County is the second highest amount, but Grand Traverse County is saying that they're paying way more than their fair share.
800,000 or something like that annually? It's quite high.
Yeah, I thought it was 600 and some.
But we were three.
Give or take.
682.
682, so around
Yeah.
$700,000 a year. That's annually, correct?
Yeah. And they hired a CPA
Already?
firm to
Yeah.
review it and come up with the answers. 'Cause it doesn't sound like there's a set formula they can give you and say, this is how we got the numbers. From the response of the director, it says, well, it's a historical thing, and
What
Just like ours?
Yes.
what they did is they just locked everybody into what they were paying that year. So we had been paying generously more in because it was a voluntary amount to pay in, and it had been asked, we were paying it. It got locked in there, so that's why we are so high, because we're so high and we've got one of the lowest populations of care. So it was a bad deal.
I mean, they did have a per person, like Traverse City, I think it was $5.83, and Leelanau was $4.70, and everybody else was like $1, you know? So-
Per capita.
so-
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
per person, yeah.
This has been an issue for many years. Commissioner Lauter remembers when David Marsh was on the board, he always brought that up, and he was the rep, and he just had a tough time. He tried to get the formula, and black and white, show us how you got these numbers. And so this was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's still an issue. They can't seem to develop, or at least give us a formula how we get those allocations. But I think Grand Traverse will get that answered out.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a very serious issue moving forward, and I anticipate that we are going to see some changes.
Or at least be more transparent on how we got those numbers.
Right.
Any other comments or, I mean, I did see where they're trying to change the commissioners' things to 4 years. That was in the Record Eagle today. Yeah. So that brings us then to public comment. Is there any public comment? Please come forward.
Good evening again. One is fascinated when we talk about our 7 commissioners' goals. You know, we never talk about what the people's goals might be, what the taxpayers' goals might be. These are 7 personal goals that we get together on, and then we agree upon them, and if it costs the taxpayers money, the taxpayers don't know until later on. And so I would urge the commissioners, listen more to taxpayers and try to understand, and electors, and try to understand if the goals that we come up with are realistic and honest goals, and are they necessary. And I compliment Mr. Yannick for identifying and clarifying what a goal is. And a goal is a nice thing to do. In my mind, if you want to do anything, you call it an objective, which has a specific set of standards and how you go about it. If you don't do that process, it's a little game we play with ourselves. And I also agree with Commissioner Lautner. Maybe we should have a goal of just doing the county's business and stop growing bureaucracies. Tonight's issue, we have this contentious issue of early childhood. It has consumed tremendous amount of time and money, way beyond any benefit of any kind we're going to receive from it to the state. Even going forward, it'll be difficult to justify that effort on such a contentious issue, which involves taxing. Now, the 4 of you commissioners that have engineered it should be complimented, because you've wielded a golden baton to get taxpayers to do your bidding. And I find it kind of shameful. The early childhood obviously is not going to affect any more. It'd be a miracle if it's going to affect or benefit even 1% of the population of this county. And that to me is, when you're in public office, your goal is to do things that are of benefit to a significant majority of the taxpayers, electors, or inhabitants. We have lost our way in this issue. We're witnessing, and we've witnessed, the best possible sloppy governance regarding this issue. And it's not very much to be proud of, I don't believe. And if I were on a commission, I wouldn't even touch that with a 10-foot pole, as you people have attempted to fool around with. And I believe we're poorly represented in this issue, and we're wasting taxpayers' dollars on this issue. I think we're trying to say we can perform miracles, like we can with affordable housing, when we deal with early childhood. And I don't think any one of us has a magic wand, not even omniscient and omnipotent county officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, then I think we go to Commissioner comment. Commissioner West.
Well, we got an exam today, but I didn't see a grading scale. And before I complete it, I want to know how I'm going to be graded.
And where it goes.
Is 90% an A?
There's no grading, we're after knowledge.
Any other
See
comments?
how well-rounded the commissioners are.
Commissioner Sotoslov.
Just a clarification, Mr. Chairman, I want to be sure I understood your comment earlier when we were talking about individuals who had commented at the last meeting on early childhood. Were you referring to public comment, that the individuals who commented in public comment were being, or were going to benefit from the health?
No, I was talking about when you had when you first passed to put it on the ballot, the
You're
people.
talking about the report from the ECCC.
The
Yes.
Dr. Coney show.
And the people
Okay.
who you presented were actually people who were going to be hired.
One of them was.
Yeah. you
Well,
know.
no, actually, none of them were. I don't
One of
think
them was.
anybody-
One of them is.
One of
She's
them
already
is.
stated it.
Mhm.
So,
Amanda and
Stowe.
Amanda,
So-
she's on the health board already.
and she was pushing it.
but she's hiring her for this now.
It's a continuation of the
Yeah, I was going to say it's a continuation of somebody.
And there's
Anyway, I
Holly
just
Anderson.
clarified, I thought you meant.
So the millage is
Holly
going to her.
Anderson,
That's
that
why I'm saying it's a conflict of interest.
But I misunderstood what you were,
Oh.
I thought you were referring to last week, and I
I
thought,
mean,
oh, no.
these were your experts that you presented.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we could. Commissioner Law.
Well, to further clarify, there was more, because there was the Holly Anderson and Michelle Klein and Amanda Stowe, and I don't have all the names in front of me, but there were others. They may not have presented, but they were the ones out in the public pushing this proposal and stating that it would be run by the health department. So they were pushing the proposal, and now they are going to have jobs doing it. So some may be continuations, but they're a continuation of something that was going to end unless this millage passed. So there's the clarification.
Any other comments? All right, none. So then we will go to approval of financials. We do have one amendment, I think it is. Commissioner Law.
A fund transfer.
Oh, I'm
I would,
sorry,
yeah,
transfer.
move to approve fund transfer 2020-001. Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to claims and account.
Move to approve claims and accounts, $516,803.15. Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes 7-0. So that brings us to post audit.
And I would move to approve post audit, $1,365,746.79.
Support. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.
I have an answer on the gaming for the sheriff on the signage. So what is?
Yeah, but if I can allow
On the record, you only have some say